you cannot accept it because it's out of your control. So within that KPI, find something that you can control. An example of that was the last session. There was the customer complaints. Right? So how many complaints do you handle? I can handle 15 a day. So is that your KPI? How many are going to receive? No idea. So the question is not how many. The question is what do you do that complaint? How you handle that complaint? Because that's under your control. So do you answer it within 3 days? If you answer it within 3 days, then that becomes a KPI. But my question to that person was, is 3 days enough? Shouldn't you be going to your customers who you're distributing this to and saying, what do you need? What do you need from me and what do I need from you? Well, it's an engineering problem. It's going to take 3 months to solve, so therefore my KPI is ruined. Yeah, but you did your part. And more importantly, the engineering function needs to start thinking about how are they going to solve the problem. And it's not 3 months, but a shorter answer period. And that becomes their KPI. So it's a give and take on KPIs. But what's important is that you measure something that's under your control, not out of your control. Because out of your control, you're a victim of circumstances. And you don't want to run your life that way, right? It's complicated enough without having KPIs that don't make any sense. And that's where this discussion between your boss and yourself becomes important. You know things the boss doesn't know. The boss knows things that you don't know. So there's a discussion that has to happen to set the weightage and to set the targets. But what your defense, where you plant the pole and say, "I'm not. This is it. This is where we stand," is that you do not accept a KPI that you cannot control, a measurement, so a target that you cannot control, and that's hard. It's really hard because remember that cascading down. So basically, if we have, that's an example of that. And I'm sorry for making this up as I go, so it might not be accurate. But one of the measures and the strategy, right, was water, non-renewable water, right? So NRW needs to go down to 28%, for example, from 34. Right? So you come down. Here I am as an individual, right? And I'm doing my job. I'm not going to be measured on this. I'm going to be measured on what is in my job that helps this. It's a different measure than an RW. So within your job function, what can you do to decrease this from 35% down to 28% or whatever it is? So do not accept as a KPI that you yourself are going to reduce the NRW to 28. Yeah, but that's the organization's. It's not mine. It's not mine. So it's not a direct translation of 28 to 35, 28 to 35. No, it's in this system as you come down to your job. What is your impact on NRW? You might have zero impact on it, so therefore you don't deserve to have a KPI that talks about this. But if you do, what is it? What is it that you can do to reduce it by, in effect, what, 7%, so 20% lower than where it is today? And for that, you need to be proactive, you need to be studious, you need to be disciplined, you need to be all these things. And you need to fight. You need to fight for what's right. For what's right for the organization is what's right for you. Right? It's too easy to write I'm going to be polite, a bad KPI. I had another word in head. I was going to say that. It's too easy. And we've seen KPIs written that are absurd at this level. You go, oh yeah, we just take this and we move it down here. No way. No way. You get that? No way. So don't accept it.
Build on your example on this NRW. So if let's say the KPI that the ministry has is to, or SPAN has to reduce it by 28%. So what if I am the staff who are in charge of NRW? So I need to break down the kind of work that I need to do to help to achieve this,
Exactly.
and this breakdown of the work will be my KPI.
At your level, if you're head of
at
that
my level,
department,
yeah.
if you're head of that department, that's your level. And then you be working with your division heads to basically figure out, well, what is their job within you being able to achieve that. And then they are going to go down to the individual level. Right? And what's important is that not everyone gets the same KPI. That's the other thing. So if all of us get, the same KPI, then who's responsible for that KPI? All of us? We're not communist system. This doesn't work that way. Right? So within your team, if you have a team, who's responsible for what? What is your job description? What is your job description? How does your job description relate to all of this? And if your job description is wrong, then that's a different issue. Remember, that means the central part is not right. So KPIs are not going to solve it. You have to solve it through working through the job description. KPIs are not here to make up for mistakes in other places. I can't tell you the amount of times we've seen KPIs written because the salary is imbalance, so therefore we'll make an easy target so we can up their salary because they're going to get more money. Anyway, this is not the way to solve problems. You solve problems at that level. You don't use KPIs as the coverall, whitewash. It's too important. And that's why you cannot bring in pay for performance until you get these things solved. Yeah, does that make sense? So your KPIs, and this is the difficulty. Don't envy Melody and his team. Seriously. He goes home and cries every night. This is not easy to do the first few times. So be patient because you might end up with some KPIs that, hey, if the target's not reasonable, the weightage is not good. Okay, we'll see it as we progress. So don't know. It's not an on-off switch, it's a progression. It's going to get a lot better than it was before, but it's not going to be perfect the first time. I've never seen it get perfect overnight. Never. It takes some iterations. And that's why we say, bring in pay for performance not this year, maybe not even next year, depending on how far you want, but in 2 years' time you can. And as I said earlier, pay for performance is the step into talent pool. It's a step into getting better people into the organization. It's a step into growing the organization. So that's why it's important. It's not just to reward some people. It's actually, it moves an organization. It justifies, it pays for itself. Okay. So now we have KPIs and we have behavioral competencies, right? What is the weightage that a KPI is going to have versus the score of your behaviors? And this was decided upon by your steering committee. And basically they say, for the moment, it's going to be 30% weightage given to behaviors and 70% to KPIs. It makes sense. It makes sense because of this famous, 87% achievement versus 200. We need to focus on KPIs to begin with. This is a first evolution. In organizations like Microsoft, Amazon, etc., they don't measure KPIs anymore. They just measure behavior, key objectives, things like that. So you can evolve. This is not just as a given system. But where you are at now, in terms of maturity for as an organization, this makes sense. It's okay. So basically what you do is you take your final score for your KPI, and you take your final score for your behavior, and you multiply that final score for the KPI by 0.7, multiply the behavior by 0.3, you get numbers here, and you add these up, and that's your total final score. The key here is that it's not just KPIs, it's KPIs plus behavior. That's the key. The what of the job and the how. They both play a role. So basically, you can be doing a great job, but doing it poorly. not being a good person, you're still okay, but barely. Barely. So your KPI saved you. But there's going to be some red flags on your behavior. Your behavior is not going to be acceptable. If you're 2.7. If you have the reverse though, if you have the reverse, which is you're a very nice person, but you're not doing the job, then thanks, but that's actually more serious. That's what this weightage of 70-30 does to you. Yeah? So achieve your targets, but do them nicely. is the big answer. I'm very different.
So how do they assess their stuff?
Yeah, they basically do, Google, for example, does what's called OKRs. And they look at, it's a variety, a variation on this. They look at their objectives, and then they look at their tasks. And basically give each other, so they dispense with KPIs as such. They say, what do I need to do to achieve that objective? That's what I'm going to do. And everyone gets it.
So the objective of how you do it,
It's your job. It's your job. But you have to achieve your goal. That's all. That's all. So it's actually, sorry, a simpler system than this, but we're not that mature yet. I'm sorry to say that, right? You have to learn to walk before you can run. And Google took years to get there. It took years to get there. They're actually failing before they brought in OKR. And this is a version of OKR because we are linking the strategy to your KPIs. And so we're almost halfway there. And that's what's so powerful about this. But it's not easy to do, huh? It's not easy to do. The first few times, because sometimes there's not a direct understanding of my target, how does that relate to this? How can I, and that's where you come in, because you know your job. You know the impact you have. You know the kinds of things you can do. So just don't accept what the boss tells you. Negotiate. And that's why we're going to spend the afternoon talking about negotiations. You the weapons at the end.
they're the boss.
They're the boss. But then you have the employee engagement survey. Revenge. You also, it has to be an honesty, right? Yeah, it's not always easy, but one of the problems that we have in Southeast Asia, you're a culture that doesn't like conflict. You don't like disagreement. And as a consequence of that, you tend to be very nice to each other. But this is a process that, again, it's your income, it's your salary, it's your career, etc. You have to fight for it. And the fight for it is a negotiation. It doesn't have to be 50 cup, but it has to be a well thought out, reasoned approach as to why you're being asked to do what you're being asked, and what can you do to influence it. Be aware. Be aware of what you're doing and how you can influence your job. Yeah. Same thing here. If you have if you're a nice person, you're doing a nice thing, but you're not getting your KPIs, you're not going to achieve what you need to achieve. You're going to be put in the PPP. So nice people end up in the PPP. But also, people who are lousy at behavior will be noticed. Will be noticed. And again, it takes time. It takes time. It's not going to happen like that just because we're on this thing. So here's the plan. This is what you had asked earlier. Basically, in the January period, or before the beginning of January, it could be also December, you have a detailed plan for the year. KPIs run on the yearly cycle. So your KPI should be a year. Right? Behavior also. But remember, this is the thing about behavior. We are observing it every day, right? This is the thing. Particularly if you're an executive, or if you are a non-executive observing your boss. or your colleagues. If you see inappropriate behavior in January or in February, and you wait for the mid-year or even the end of the year to say it, you misbehave in January 23rd. Who remembers that? No, I didn't. I mean, that's going to be the answer. No, I didn't. Didn't happen. So what happens with behaviors, and this will happen in your organization too, is that yes, you lay it out for the year, but you start observing it every day. And when you see the wrong behavior, you will talk to them there and then. You won't wait for your job performance review. If you do, you're making a big mistake. Because no one will remember what happened when it happened. Most of our inappropriate behavior, we don't even know we're doing it. We're blind to it. So we need feedback. Be told, you're doing this the wrong way, or you forgot about this rule and regulation. That's a normal behavior. But the idea here is that this leadership competencies, at the beginning of the year, you're basically saying, we need to up the level of your behavior in these areas. That's what you're going to write down, and those are the things we're going to pay special attention to throughout the year. And we do a final evaluation at the end of the year. Okay, so this is a planning. So this is where you weigh your weighted and your measurements for both the KPI and the stretch targets. And this is where you set up what are the behaviors that we need to improve. What are the behaviors that we need to?
Behavior is something that's very subjective.
Yes.
That's why sometimes people use organizational politics as a medium, and the fairness issue comes in.
Yes.
How this model can streamline this.
But okay, organizational politics, right, is what we're trying to get rid of. We're trying to get rid of it through observable behavior, not through I think this, or I believe I heard this, rumors, gossip, all that. Out. As an employee, and we'll see this afternoon, as an employee, you can ask them, document, what did I do and how did I end up? And you as a boss, or for that matter, as a colleague, can go to that person and say, this is what I just observed, right? How did that happen? And you can have a conversation. That honesty needs to be there. Yes. Do not accept a boss who comes in December and says, I observed in March 15th that you did this. Shame on you. It doesn't mean anything. On the contrary, it doesn't move anything. It pulls the organization back. That's not the way we behave. We're open and honest with what we see, and we address issues when they come up on behavior. Performance takes a longer time, so that's KPIs we don't change every day. But behavior is a habit. 50% of our time are habits. We don't even know we have these habits. So as a consequence, we're not aware of how we behave, or how people understand the way we behave, perceive the way we behave. So it takes time. So in any case, so this is it. So basically you have KPIs that marching through, but then mid-year you do a quick review. And if things have changed substantially because of the ministry, because of the water supply, because, then you can adjust. But please don't spend your time mid-year completely changing your KPIs. That means that you did a bad job to begin with, because these, remember, are a year long, not 6 months. But things happen. Right? Sorry, things happen. So mid-year review. So planning session, mid-year review, where are we? Any adjustments to KPIs, any adjustments to behavior need to be made? Okay. And then at the end of the year, you do a final review. And only at the final review do you actually do the ratings. There are no ratings before that. Now you can talk about, we're here, your behaviors are not improving. I think you're heading towards a 2. You can say that, but it's not going to be circled in red on any sheet. It's going to be talked about. Yeah. So that's what this looks like. So let me bring you over then. Let me bring you over to something, I don't know if you have or not. These are the actual forms. I won't show you the non-executives, but the executives are exactly the same setup. Exactly the same setup. So this is the planning one that's done in January, right? For the year. Planning forms for non-executives. This is the first page. So who's in this discussion? Right? You as an employee, and then your supervisor. Sometimes I guess in Spain you have more than one supervisor. I don't know. I saw that in your paperwork. So you have a second one up there. And then read this together. Basically, why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this session? And do not allow your boss to do this without you. That is not acceptable. That's not acceptable behavior. And do not do it alone. The boss, I don't have the time for this, just fill it out. Don't accept that. They must be in the room with you and you must have a discussion. And if they don't, go to HR. They say, HR is not there. No, HR will be there. That's their job. So, make sure that this is it, yeah? And that the final page is signed off on by both parties. That's key here, okay? Hey, look at this. We've seen this before, right? So this explains why we're doing this, how we're doing this. We also will see this piece, which is the Be Smarter, which is how do you write a KPI? What are the things that should be in the KPI? All right? And then here it is. So what happens is that these levels, if you're a non-executive, these levels are filled out already. They're filled out in terms of, for example, reduction of NRW from 35% to 25%. So that's a target, 28%. Comments that are made at this level. There might be a comment or two there. Then that KPI gets translated to the department level. And this is filled out by the HOD. You get this already filled out. Then this one is filled out by the department level, division level. So that basically you see where your KPI is linked. You see, this is what this is. KPI is linked. To what strategy? To what KPI that the ministry is giving. Okay? Understood? So, key, other thing here. You should, if you're a non-executive, you should have a minimum of 3 KPIs and a maximum of 5. 5. No KPI should have a rating less than 15%. How many of you have KPIs that are like 5%, 10%? Yeah. Welcome to the club here. How much time do you spend on the 5%? 0. It's so small. I only worry about the stuff that's big. Yeah. So only worry about the stuff that matters. Stuff that matters is more than 15%. And if you have more than 5 KPIs, here's the thing. As human beings, we can only remember 5 things. So when you sit down at any point in time and say, what are your KPIs? You should be able to say what they are. If you have 10 KPIs, and then there's and then I think there's one over here, and you're supposed to do that, and oh, I forgot the other one over there. It's like, how are you going to do it? How are you supposed to do a job that you don't know what you're supposed to be doing? So 5 is maximum. For the department heads, for these people in here, they have between 3 and 7. They have more. Why? Because some of these divisions or departments just have a very wide span. So it allows them to live the book. But they have maximum settlement. Maximum settlement. So if the boss is at 7, don't allow them to go beyond that. And that's what this form does. It basically says down here, KPI 1, KPI 2, KPI 3, KPI 4, KPI 5, KPI 4 and 5 are optional. Why 3? If you have less than 3, then you're dependent almost exclusively on so few that if one of the 2 goes down, you're in trouble. That's not right. So a minimum of 3 allows you at least 1 bad one and 2 good ones, and you're okay. But if you only have 2 and 1 goes down, you're in trouble. That's not good, right? So 3 is the minimum, 5 maximum, because that's what we can depend on. Yeah, makes sense?
It's very small.
It's very small. the impact is small and the danger is high. So five is a good number, but again, don't go beyond that. And actually the form doesn't have anything. If you see more than 5, yell at him. And then, once you have the KPI description and the target, then you look at the weightage. Don't look at the weightage before you have all KPIs. Because now you can make a decision as to what is more important than the other, right? So that's important. So first, fill out the KPIs based on the strategy as you move down. Second then, look at the weightage. And so it's up to you to fill out the form as well as your boss. This is a two-way street. Okay, so that's KPIs. So in January, all you do is you do these 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you look at the target. You look at the stretch target and the weight. And you fill it out. And then you go to the next piece, which is the behavioral competencies. So this is the same form. Now you're up to page, I think, 9 of 18. So now you're on page 9, and it looks like this. It's basically the 7 famous competencies, right? The behavior, foundational, and growth. And this is a new piece. The new piece is that you're going to be looking at writing down behaviors based on what's called the KISS principle. K is keep. It means no action required. You continue doing what you're doing. Nice job. I means improve. So this is a behavior we need to see improving. S is to stop doing it. And the other S is start doing it. Okay? So in here, what we want is that as you go through the 7 behaviors, pick 2, minimum. 2. And maximum, again, 5, because we can't remember more than 5. Pick 5. And basically use the KISS. So this behavior, do we keep, do we improve, do we stop, or do we stop?
When you stop first,
Yeah. When you stop, what if you stop and then you start it again? That's not helpful. But if you start and you stop, not helpful either. That's why you have the mid-year review. Right? Are we seeing this behavior? Is it improving? We've asked you to stop 6 months ago. We're still not seeing it happening. What can we do together to make this happen? So that's a KISS. So it looks like this. So remember, this was the behavior, honesty. This was the description. The employee is honest, acts in an ethical manner, and prioritizes man's needs. This is behaviors to be observed, non-executive. Remember the examples of positive behaviors and examples of inappropriate behaviors? They're on these pages. Right? So basically, you can pick from here, or you can come up with your own. You're not obliged to use these, but these are helpful references. Right? So you're going to pick 2 to 5 behaviors here that you either keep, improve, stop, or start. So if you have gossip, then you probably want to stop it, as opposed to improving it, starting it. So you write down here, gossiping, stop, and then the action to be taken. And you only write down an action if you have to improve it, stop it, or start it. What are you going to do to stop it? Habits are really hard to change. They take forever to change. Right? So 6 months is about right in terms of timing. So what are the actions? And how are we going to, so it's like, boss give me a weekly feedback. Or if you see me doing it, I'll step in. Or if you hear it happening, I'll come to you. We're doing this together. This is not the boss against the employee, this is together. They have a responsibility in their behaviors to ensure that everyone in their department or under them is basically doing honest. They have an obligation. So they will want to write down things that allows them to fulfill that obligation. So it's not just, I'm going to write this down and you better behave yourself. That's not their job. Their job is to write it down and to figure out together what are we going to do to change. How can I support you in this change? If you you need to change. The other thing that you don't want is just write everything down and repeat. I'm perfect. There's no improvement necessary. Everything is okay. So basically, everything is key. What happens if it isn't? What happens if you don't? So you won't always have something to improve on. It's wise. So this is honesty. This is discipline. Remember, these are specifically geared towards the individual behavior. Here again, the key principle, so the KISS principle. This is accountable. This is proactive. This is customer driven. This is strategic. And this is students. Now, note there are no ratings here. All we're doing is we're listing what we expect to have happen over the next year in terms of behaviors. So there's no, this is a 3, this is a 4, there's none of that there. This is just about having an honest conversation about these elements. And every so often, if you have someone like honesty, right? You know, they're an honest person, so there's really nothing to do with it. That's okay. But please understand, this is the time to talk about it. This is the time to write things down. Okay? So that's then going to 7, and the final page. Employee signs, supervisor signs, and you're able, both of you, to write comments. So now it's documented. It's documented. So if you're unhappy, or if there's something in there that you really don't think is possible, write it down. You need to document. Don't take their word for it, don't take your word for it, document. The employee has the opportunity to write something down. So yeah, if you don't want to sign because it's so awful, and you run out of space, and you want to tear up the document, then you have a real problem. That becomes something that HR needs to get involved in.
All the behavior, this is now, this is only 2 to 5 behavior.
Yeah.
So we are not going to
No, all of them, but only write 2 to 5 in these columns. Yeah, in here. They're only up to 5.
Okay.
So you want 1 or 2 per.
So this process will be done in the beginning and end of the year.
This is the beginning of the year. This is the planning. Right? This is planning for the year.
Okay.
These are the behaviors that we're going to work on.
Oh.
Okay? So that was the January. And you know, look at these pages, 18 pages. We're generating paper, right? We're killing trees. The idea here is that you want it detailed enough, right? You want it detailed enough. This is your opportunity. It should last at least a half an hour, this discussion. It can last up to an hour, particularly if there's a disagreement. But there's basically, it should last at least a half an hour. And you should be filling this out. Because this is your roadmap for the year. This is your map that you're going to be using. So this is a serious piece of work. And that's why I say you have to do it with your boss. Or you have to do it with your employee if you're an executive. This is an obligation. This is not a nice to have. So now you have your midterm review. Remember, this is like in June or July. So what does the midterm review look like? Again, supervisor and an employee fill it out. Note down here, KPI should only be revised if there's a change in priorities and targets that are beyond the control of the employee. So it's not like, well, this is a hard job, I'm going to change my target. Wow, I'm going to lower my target. There has to be a reason for it. Not just it's a hard job. There has to be something that's happened that basically forces you to change your KPIs. Right? This is not a free, this is not, as we say, get out of jail for free card. And this is the other thing. If you do change your KPI, please go to the person or the department that you are serving and talk to them that your KPI is changing, because maybe their KPI also has to change as a result of you changing your KPI. So that's just being polite. But it's also an important part. And here they are. Here are your 5 descriptions. So, what have you achieved to date, right? What is the stretch target? How are we doing? This is a general things that are happening, and then what is the revision? So first you go through how are we doing? What's happening with the KPIs? Are we on target? This thing's happening. And now the second page is you actually have the ability to change. What's the old one? What's the new one? What are the revised targets? And then we go through the famous seven behavioral competencies. So this is honesty, discipline, accountable, proactive, customer-driven, strategic, studious. Why are we doing this now? We're doing it half year just to make sure that we're on target. This is a reassurance. This is a insurance policy. And then sign off. Ability to write here's something down. Hopefully it's shorter this time. But yeah, it is an opportunity. If you don't document, you have no rights. If you document, you have rights. So document, document, document. And then last, now we're at the end of the year. This is the forms for your year-end performance. Same thing, your names and all that. These are your KPIs, the revised ones. So this is based on the outcome of July, not from January. Right, so target, stretch target achievement, variation from target to achievement, comments. And then, write it back down here. What was the weightage? What was the variation from the previous page? And then the rating, 1 to 4. So the rating depends really very much on achievement of target or not. And there's no 3.5, there's no 2.2, it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Right? And then you take the weightage and you multiply it by the rating, and that's the weighted score. And therefore, you add them up. If you had 5, you add up all 5, and that becomes your final KPI score. Here, with regard to behaviors, we basically go through this again. So, what were the things that you were supposed to be keeping, improving, stopping, and starting? Based on that, what is your rating? 1, 2, or 3? Remember the first 3? Your maximum score is 3. You can't be more honest than that. Same with discipline, same with accountable. But with the other 4, proactive is now 1 to 4. So it goes beyond expectations. Here it is, it goes beyond expectations. Now remember, we're not looking at then the list of behaviors that are, remember that we had before, which was the appropriate behaviors and inappropriate behaviors. We were basically just looking at what was committed to and what has happened. So we're not going over what has been approved. Those are the 4. Okay, now where do we end up? Sorry. You take the rating from each of these, from the pages that they belong to, and then you multiply it. Remember, the first 3 you multiply by 1, and the other 4 you multiply by 1.1. That gives you an average score. The point is, though, you have 7 scores, so you have to divide the total of this number by 7. So the total, all the scores, then divide by 7. That then gives you your average competency. And that's what you put up here, KPI score, competency score, times 0.7 times 0.3. You add them up, and that is your score. You have final comments from the supervisor, final comments from the employee. You have the signature of the supervisor, signature of the employee, and seen and reviewed by the head of the department. Name, signature, signature. Okay. So the HODs are seeing this final page, every one of them. They're seeing the final score. They're seeing comments from supervisor, comments from the employee. They are doing their job in terms of leading the business by doing this. Yeah? So this idea of writing a page of complaints and it disappears into the black hole of nothingness. And no one has ever seen it, or don't know where it is. Right? Actually, every HOD is seeing every employee in their line. Is the system perfect? No, it's not. But it's better than what you have. And it should lead you all in the right direction. Okay, any questions on these? So these are the forms that you will get. 3 different forms. The planning form, the mid-year form, and then the year-end form. And only at the year-end form do you see ratings. Okay? Any questions?
Can these HOD alter these the numbers?
No, not at this level. If there is a complaint here, a complaint there, then there has to be mitigation.
So
There has to be a mitigation, yes. The HOD has to do something. If the HOD signs off and there's an issue here that's written, they're not doing their job. They're not doing their job. And they're not behaving in an honest, open way.
So the mitigation done at what level?
Basically, I would argue that you first want to have the HOD sit down with the employee and because it's an internal issue, the employee and the boss. If that doesn't work, then it clearly becomes an HR issue. Sometimes in mitigation, there's the HOD and HR as a impartial person. Those are things that you can still work out within the system. But we should have more than 10%, 15% of people who have issues. We shouldn't, because it's a system that everyone is using. So we all should be using it fairly. Any other questions on this? Does this make sense? There's a rhythm, it's a logic in the way this is done. It's not random, and it's trying to pull it back into everyone is being seen at the same level playing field. Everyone has KPIs that are in their control. Everyone has behaviors that we're expecting them to see. And these behaviors, these KPIs are consistent across the organization. Depending on the
Okay, if the mark is finalized, based on the completed by the supervisor and HOD, is there any circumstances that the marks will be changed?
Will be changed?
To go to HR?
Yeah.
And have they had the capacity to change the marks?
That is where we come back to the forced ranking. And so far, I haven't heard Stan saying they're going to do forced ranking, but I think you're going to have to. When you do forced ranking, yes, what happens is that someone who's clearly a 3, and they get a 4 from their boss because the boss is being nice, and then on the forced ranking, they actually end up halfway down the pack, which is a 3. Then there's going to be a revision.
Should the employee be known or be appropriate to that? Or is this the HR and the full authority for that?
It's not HR. It's not, the forced ranking is done with all HODs, everyone in the room. Everyone in the room, and they're all talking about one individual at a time. So it's an organization-wide responsibility. All of the CEO and his direct reports are doing this forced ranking. That's the only way to look at this. The right way to do this. Because to be fair, what?
The final marks is kept confidential in the That's what happened previously.
Yeah. At this point in time, if you want an honest system, you need to be able to come back and say, the boss needs to come back, the HOD needs to come back and sit down with that employee and say, this is what's happening. That's the right process. But I don't control that process. It's not my KPI. I agree with you. It's not pretty because you start off with a, wow, great, and then just, or some people get moved up, bumped up. But by and large, it's as fair a process as you can get. It should not be kept confidential. I don't agree with that. Because, it's honesty, it's openness, it's all that. And they have a lot of documentation also. They have all these forms. So they can actually refer to those forms as they go through this. Is what you need.
Until what level the final marks reveal the positive.
Should be.
Is it HR can reduce any remark after the regulation?
Okay, this document stays, right? This document is documented. They can't erase this document. This document is owned by the employee and the boss and HR. You should insist on getting a copy of them every time. That's the other thing. Insist on getting copies of things. So HR can make this disappear, or the HOD can make this disappear. That's the key. Now, is the world fair and will that never happen? I can't tell that. It shouldn't have. And there's enough things in this process and it's detailed enough that you basically have a lot of touching points. And if somebody gets mistreated, it goes right through the organization. Everyone knows it. Gossip or no gossip. Everyone knows.
One guy, for the MC and
Yeah.
it affect the evolution.
It shouldn't. And we've actually, before, in your current system, you have that in there. To us, your MCs and annual leave and all that have nothing to do with your performance. Have nothing to do with your behavior. So we took it out. I can't guarantee you will come back in, but I don't see the value of having that in that documentation. That's a separate issue. If you're taking too much MC, you're taking way too much annual leave, you're not showing up, that is a PPP issue. Separate from this. Right? Because this is looking at everyone being evaluated on performance and on not whether or not you've had 20 days MC or whatever. Got my free time, whatever it is. That's not it. That's independent. Keep it where it is. Keep it under control. Any other questions on this? There is no such thing as a perfect system, and every system is open to bad actors. So we cannot guarantee that this is good, but it's so much better than what you've been doing. This is like you're starting from the basics. You've left the carpool now you're in the big city. You've come up. You've come up with the world. Not that living in a couple of bad, I'm sorry. That's a bad example. But basically you're moving up substantially in how this is done, how this is viewed, how you interact with each other.
It's more transparent.
It's much more transparent and honest. There were a lot of people in this last session that said, I've been writing notes 3 pages long, and they disappear. I never hear from them. So here, you have an HOD signing off. So if you not hear from them, the HOD knows. If you're still not getting any joy, it's documented. It's documented. It is documented. Any other points or comments? Yeah.
This is the final
Yeah.
figure. So where does the other things, that is the other thing,
That will be, I say that that's an HR, so the medical leave and the absence and all that is HR. That's HR.
That's another view. What about the other, sometimes they are given certain responsibilities that is not under their KPI, and also that is given from their behavior. So where does it?
Basically, the thing is out, okay, and this is, I don't know you as an organization, but let's go back to this. If you're in a job that is going to have a lot of variability, right, so there's stuff that's outside the KPI, and you know that up front, then within the KPI that you write, there should be something about that. So openness of 20% of your time for X, Y, Z. We're trying to be as precise as possible.
I think it's not possible to put that in KPI because sometimes I think it's very spontaneous or maybe ad hoc.
Yeah, there's stuff that happens, remember the ad hoc things, right? And this came up with legal. Legal says, I have no idea how many prosecutions we're going to get. We could get flooded tomorrow. Right? How do we have what you can? Your KPI should not be about the number. It should be about what you do. Right? So therefore, my obligation is, no matter how many I get, I need to respond to it in X, Y, Z, right? And I will handle it this way. So think about the unforeseens. One of the big problems, there are two problems with KPIs. One is that you only write down your job function. This is what I do. So therefore that's because my tasks, and those tasks become my KPIs. Don't accept that. That's not what a KPI is for. Right? KPI, you're supposed to be doing your job. So do your job. But the KPIs are really the things that are going to move the company forward. Remember that it's linked to the strategies. So they're consequently looking ahead. Are there things that we can predict? Are there things that are happening in the legal landscape? They've completely changed the laws. That's going to have a big impact on us. We need to plan for that, and that should be in the KPIs.
I think HR people should confirm this one because what I've been informed by the KPI is that if there is another other area that is not under their job scope,
Right.
not under their department job scope, there will be additional bonus given, percentage given, to top up whatever is calculated in this 100%.
And you can do that.
We need to confirm that with HR, so that everybody will hear about that.
You can do that. But please be careful with that too, because if everyone is doing it,
Yeah.
then the whole process falls down because it's 100% change. Right? 95% of your job should be consistent. And you should be able to link what you're doing to a certain amount of strategies. This link should be there. If you get something on your table that says, it has nothing to do with this, it's coming from over here, we don't know where it's coming from, but you have to do it. What is that? UFO? Aliens landing? What is this? No, it doesn't make sense, right? So that's where you need to step up and say, this is what we agreed to. How are we going to change it? And that's why it needs to be the exception and not the norm. One of the problems is if you allow that system to say, okay, stuff happens and therefore you just keep everything open, then everything changes all the time. And that system falls
Not
out.
to say that we change everything, but I think in some organization they will give some,
Yeah.
let's say, additional 5%
Yeah.
to cater all of this.
Yeah.
Ad hoc.
But I would argue, I would argue that has to be minimum 15%. Put it at 20%. Ad hoc things, but be careful because ad hoc things means nothing and everything. What is ad hoc? What? Depends on the boss, how he wakes up that morning. That's not healthy for the organization, it's not healthy for you as a
I agree on
job.
that, but ideally, that happens.
Stuff, you are a regulator with a tremendous scale and scope of responsibility. Absolutely things will happen. The government changes,
We
right?
not only have wider scope, but sometimes inter-agency agenda we need to join to participate, such as RMK 12. We need us to join and participate, and we have to spend a lot of time in drafting the RMK 12. But that one is not under our KPI.
RM 12.
Let's say.
Yeah, no, but let's just look at that. When when did you know about RM12? Did you know about it in advance, or you just showed up one day?
Because that's under KPI of Ministry of Economy and Finance, reduce importers as participation. But that one is not under the KPI of Spine.
Right. But at the same time, then within that RM12, you have to find what is the value for SPAN besides just sitting in the meeting. Because a KPI sitting in the meeting is not a
That's
KPI.
At the KPI, we have to put in the interagency collaboration agenda.
Okay. And what strategies that support? Is it in there?
Of course, because RMH we involve
Other agencies, etc.
facilities,
So basically, within, let's go back to the 8. Because you should be able to trace it. Oh, sorry. That's, now, to be fair to you, we've had this, the ministry has not come back to you with KPIs for this year, is that correct? You're still waiting for them? So basically, there is this big unknown. But out of the 22 last year, most of them are going to be there or not?
No, this year I will revise it and minimize it maximum to 7 only.
Right.
And then 22. But it's still under negotiation.
Right.
I hope to finalize everything before end of this month.
Okay. 7 is good. Congratulations if you get it. you score 4. If you do it down to 7, you get it 4, man. That's a stretch target. 1/3, excellent. Yeah, so basically, now, the interagency, right, so where does this fit in here? Does it fit here?
No, this is because it was invited as an individual, not as a no.
Oh.
Yes.
So it's not part of your job?
It's not under this category, any of this. It's not a divisional KPI.
But I would argue, to a certain extent, I don't know, it has to be up to you, right? Because basically, it is this idea that you are interacting with the agencies, and that this is part of the bigger stakeholders. It's an external stakeholder that is basically government, that has nothing to do with water, but it's still there, right? So therefore, it is in the I would say, it's in the customer centricity somewhere. And maybe even in here somewhere, in strategic communication, because it's working within the departments. So there is a link there. And the question is, how well developed are these topics that you can place yourself in there? Well, you have to find your way. This is like a roadmap, and all of a sudden the road leads to nowhere. Right? You have to have an anchor in here. So I would say, sorry.
We can put our KPI weight ourselves individually.
Sure. But the boss has to sign off. you can't go rogue and just start running KPIs, right? You have to do this with your boss. But that's a conversation you need to have with them as you sit down and go through this. What is the value of this KPI? How is it helping the organization? Oh, it's necessary to do because we're part of the government. Okay, let's understand how much of your time is dedicated. What is the impact that it's going to give to us? Where does it fit in the strategy? These are things you should talk about. It's not just the government invited me, I have to go. There's a link, right? Find the link. That is the key. As long as you and the boss and the interview understand the link, they agree upon the link, it's okay. That can become a KPI. But make sure that that's under your control. The KPI is under your control. Right? So showing up to a meeting, yeah. What is value is that bringing to the organization? That's key. And it is one of those things, the government requires it, okay. And that's part of that customer centricity, shareholder engagement, or stakeholder engagement. The government is one of your stakeholders. And it might be one of the 7 KPIs that come out of the ministry. Then your KPI is key. Because remember, it's not only this, it's also what is the ministry requiring you to do, and what is the commission requiring you to do.